And we're on. Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of UMAC Zoom In, a series dedicated to new university museums and innovative cultural heritage projects in universities around the world. My name is Marta Lourenco, and I'm the chair of UMAC, the Committee of ICOM, the International Council of Museums for University Museums and Collections. Today, I have the pleasure to be talking to Professor Joshu, Director of the Art Museum of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. His museum not only has a brand new wing inaugurated during its golden anniversary, but the Chinese University of Hong Kong has been increasingly recognizing its importance and upgrading the museum institutionally and internally. That is, among other things, what Professor Joshu will tell us about. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Josh.
Thank you, Marta.
It's really a pleasure we had this conversation scheduled for a long time, but finally we have this opportunity and it's really fantastic. So I would start our conversation before we enter the museum and before you give us a tour, a remote tour of what has been the latest developments. I would like to ask you to introduce yourself to our viewers, to our general audience, to our colleagues. How did you become interested in museums? Did you always have this interest? Is it a recent interest? Tell us more about you.
Well, thank you, Marta. It was my pleasure to be here with you all. I am trained as an art historian. I study art history at the University of Chicago, and then I finished my doctorate at Oxford. And then I became a curator at the Seattle Art Museum, and I stayed there for 8 years, had a wonderful time. And I moved back to Hong Kong, which was where I was born, in 2013. And I've been with the Chinese University of Hong Kong since then. So almost close to a decade now. Yep.
Yeah. You are the director of the Art Museum since when?
I was a director since 2015. Yes.
2015. Well, fantastic. So tell us more. For those of us who never visited Hong Kong, would never visit the Art Museum, tell us a little bit more about it, about its collections, about its exhibitions, about its new wing. We're very curious, so let us know. Tell us.
Okay. Yep, I am going to share screen now and give you a PowerPoint. So can you see my screen?
Absolutely, it's perfect.
Okay, great. I would start by saying a few words about the Chinese University of Hong Kong, which was the second university established in Hong Kong. It was founded in 1963, and the idea of having a Chinese University of Hong Kong was such that a university would be devoted to the study of Chinese civilization and language and history and so on, because the first university that was established in Hong Kong was the Hong Kong University. So it was closer to the British system, and a lot of people consider it to be a more colonial university. So from 1963 onwards, there was a desire for a local university to have a stronger emphasis in Chinese studies. And our founding vice chancellor, Professor Zhuo Mingli, was an eminent scholar trained in UC Berkeley, and he was also teaching there at that time. And then he came back to establish the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And at that time, he had the idea of establishing a university museum because he felt that in order for the students to learn more about Chinese culture, it would be very helpful for there to be a university museum with actual artworks and cultural artifacts that illuminate the Chinese civilization. And here, for those of you who have never been to Hong Kong, I would just show you a map showing you where the Chinese University is. It is located in the northern parts of Hong Kong. It's called the New Territories. It is only 22 kilometers from the city center. in the past, in the 1960s, of course, it was considered to be very far off. It was almost in the outback. But in 2022, we are very much integrated with the rest of Hong Kong, thanks to the development of the rail system. And in fact, last month, there was a new metro line, the subway line, that would take you directly to the city center in 8 stops in less than 25 minutes. So that is a very good sign for us at the museum and for our staff and for our visitors. So the University Museum here at the Chinese University was actually the first purpose-built museum in Hong Kong. Even though there are other museums that were established earlier than our museum, such as the Hong Kong Museum of Art and the University Museum at the Hong Kong University, those museum galleries were originally located in a building that were not custom made as a museum. So the Hong Kong Museum of Art, for instance, were hosted in the City Hall. It occupied 2 floors of the City Hall at that time. It was not until the second half of the 20th century that there was a separate building for the Hong Kong Museum of Art. But for our university museum, it was built in 1971. And our architect was the famous I.M. Pei. And the university architect at that time was Mr. Sito Wai. I.M. Pei was a very close friend of some of the main patrons of the university at that time. So he really lent his vision and his hand to the building of our museum. And as you can see in the floor plan on the right-hand side, he had this idea of developing a courtyard structure at the heart of the university campus. And this whole courtyard structure is actually the Institute of Chinese Studies, which is the host of the museum at that time. And the highlighted part at the back was where the museum was located. And now I.M. Pei's idea is such that the University Museum with our treasures would be akin to the ancestral hall or the family shrine in a typical Chinese courtyard home, where you would put the most valuable items at the rear chamber of the household. So that's where he positioned the museum. And here in the middle of the courtyard home design is a fish pond. And this is where you see the fish pond here. So in order to enter the museum, first of all, you will enter from the entrance of the Institute of Chinese Studies. And then you will pass the fish pond, and then you will get to the back of the art museum. And here you see the image of I.M. Pei on the left with our founding Vice Chancellor, Professor Lee, and then the university architect, Mr. Wai.
It's beautiful. The building is amazing. The building is amazing.
Thank you. And this is a snapshot of 2 images when the museum opened in September 27th of 1971. And then on the colorful photograph on the bottom right was the celebration of the museum's golden anniversary last fall on September 24th. What is interesting is that, it was exactly the same site. And in the inset, you will see 2 gentlemen who were the original patrons of the university and the University Museum. They were brothers of the Lee family. On the left is Mr. Harold Lee, and on the right was Dr. J.S. Lee. And so in the bottom right photo, you would see the offsprings, the children of the Lee brothers seated on the front row, and they continue to support the museum. So it is very heartwarming, I would say, to have the support from 2 generations of the same family uninterrupted for a university museum. I think we might well have been the first university museum in Greater China that has been supported by the same family for over 50 years. We continue to look forward to work more closely with the family and other extended family members, and of course with other community members as well. And this would give you a sight of what the gallery looks like without all the people, without the chairs. And this is a very functional space for both classical art, as you can see here with calligraphy, and also a very popular sport for students. This is the site where we would have our annual graduation exhibitions for our fine arts graduating seniors. And in fact, as we speak, we have an exhibition of the graduation scene, a graduation exhibition at the moment. And then since 1971, the museum had two phases of expansion. One was in 1998, and here you see that this doorway, this would lead you into the 1988 building. And then just over 15 years ago in 2007, we had another new wing that had two new galleries. Now, we are so centrally located that some of you might remember from reading the news 3 years ago about the social unrest, social movement in Hong Kong. We were at the epicenter of the social unrest in September. And this building that you see on the left is actually the museum. And at that time, about 10,000 people gathered, protesters gathered on campus. But luckily, nothing happened to the museum premise. It was a peaceful assembly at that time. But the point for me to show this image is to show you that we are very proud of the fact that our museum is probably one of the few university museums that are so centrally located on the main quads. Now, just to give those of you who have not been to our museum, these are just some quick figures. Okay, we were founded in 1971, and we have 4 galleries with a space of 1,453 square meters for exhibitions. And we have close to 16,000 works of art, and we have published over 130 catalogs over the years. So we average about more than 2 catalogs a year, and we are very proud of our academic publications. And we host from 60 to 80,000 visitors a year. And the student population on campus is about 20,000 students. So that means most of our visitors are actually from other parts of Hong Kong. And our senior administrators think very highly of the museum. So one of our former vice chancellors, Professor Marta, said that the museum was the crown jewels of the university. Okay.
Right. Nice.
Now, I wanted to, for the purpose of this talk, since we will be talking about operations, I want to start by saying that, you know, the university has given us about 21 to 22 head counts a year, okay? But in order for this museum to function, we need about 40 staff. Currently, there are about 37 of us. So when I joined this university museum back in 2013, there were only about 17 staff members. So we have more than doubled over the past 9 years. But in the meantime, our budget, the allocation from the university had not really increased by that much. So that means we have to go out of our way to seek support elsewhere. And I understand that this is a challenge for many museums, not just university museums, but museums in general. So when I think about you know, what we have done, sometimes we think about what really counts for our senior administrators at the university. Because while we are able to get some support from the community, we also want to seek more support from our university. So here, since 2013, when I joined the museum, there are several things that you know, we can speak in broad terms. We have raised about $35 million Hong Kong dollars. That would be roughly about $4 million US dollars for programs, and this is a way for us to, you know, to make our programs feasible. And then we have accessioned over 700 works of art that are worth over $100 million. And we have published 26 scholarly catalogs in addition to numerous general articles, educational booklets, and also other catalogs that are published by other people on our collection. And we have curated and contributed to 80 exhibitions. So I think from a strictly museum standpoint, I think this is a fairly good record. But sometimes I ask myself this question though. If I were to present these kind of figures to our senior administrators, these may not necessarily be, the kind of achievements that would make them give us additional support, actually.
Yes.
Because they think, well, if you have raised $35 million for the programs, that means that you are doing well on your own. You can continue to support yourself. And
Exactly.
if you can earn, if you can get 700 artworks from the community, from donors, then that's great. We don't have, the university doesn't have to spend money to acquire works of art. So, is this really one way for us to try to make the university to be more sympathetic to our needs, and how should we present this? But then what would really count for our colleagues at the university is that when we say that we have done, these projects with other global institutions, that's when it ticked with our senior administrators. That's when they realize that we are not just a museum, but we are really a platform for the university to work with other universities or with other institutions. And that's when they become interested in what we do. And then another thing that we have done that has resonated with our senior administrators is the fact that we have devised a guest lecturing program for 34 courses, benefiting over 5,000 students since 2017. Now, before 2017, we have offered courses occasionally, offer a course about a specific topic in art or about an exhibition. But what we find is that, we spend so much time to organize the course, to devise the syllabus, and to prepare for the coursework. But in the end, how big could that class be? We can have 50 students. That's already considered to be a full class. But then you're talking about the impact for the university. 50 students. There are hundreds of courses being offered on campus. So we started to switch gear. We think about what are other ways that we can engage other faculties more effectively. So what we have done, what our educators have done, was to study the syllabus of the university curriculum, and then find the courses that where our collection may contribute to, and then we contact those professors proactively and suggest that, well, I see that you're teaching this course on geography. I see that you're teaching this course on this subject. It seems that there are a few objects from our collection that could, contribute to the topic. Would you allow us 15 to 20 minutes to speak to your students about this particular topic? And oftentimes I would say that our colleagues of professors would be very positive, and they will allow our curators and educators to go in and speak to them about it. And that turned out to be mutually beneficial for our colleagues in other departments, and also for those students who become fascinated by the fact that, oh, wow, I didn't know that our museum has these kind of objects. That's pretty cool. So to give you more concrete examples of some of these things that we have done, I'll just give you 3 examples here. For instance, with the Department of Music, we invite the seniors, music majors, to compose exhibition theme songs for some of our special exhibitions. And then we show them the objects that will be in the show, and then we tell them the theme, and then we try to express, the sentiments of some of these artworks, and then give them free rein to think about, what inspire them to think of, a song, and then they would compose the theme song, and then at the opening, oftentimes would invite them to perform their song.
Wow, that's ceremony. Amazing. I never saw. I mean, it's crazy because it's not an intuitive, natural relation, and so you bring,
it's quite fun. I mean, oftentimes I would say, we of course they would show us the music beforehand, and then sometimes,
Right.
the tempo is a little too fast, or is
Oh,
this really, so we have this kind of discussion. But because I am not a music professor, so I would just
course.
give my really 2 cents. I would give suggestions, but I never impose
No.
any changes
No.
on them. But I think the only restrictions I give them is that, okay, make it no more than 5 minutes. That's my that's my
Oh,
requirement.
fantastic.
Yeah.
No, but
And then
my point is the innovative nature. I mean, an art collection bringing together music students. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, so
how
that's
it-
been fun for the students as well. Yeah.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then another project that we have done is with the chemistry department. Some of our collections, they are in the study collection. So we allow the chemistry students to do testing on them, to analyze the objects, and so that they can tell us about the properties of these, say for instance, the bronze mirrors, because we know about the style changes, stylistic changes over a period of time, but then we don't really know the physical compositions and the chemical compositions of these objects. So this is another kind of win-win situation where they can tell us more about these objects, and then at the same time they will also become interested in these objects that they are working on. And then another example is our collaboration with the Faculty of Medicine. This is actually based on the model initiated at Yale, where they believe that in order to train prospective doctors, looking at works of art really helps, because it really helps them to identify visual clues, so that it will make them more sensitive to diagnosing cases. Yeah. So we borrow that model, and then we use, of course, at Yale they were using works of art from oil paintings from the British Center for the Arts, but here we are using our collection of Chinese art. So we don't just use paintings, but we also use objects. We let our students handle the objects. Tell me the difference between overglaze and underglaze, and then when you see this crack here, can you actually feel it? What you see does it correspond to your touch? So that has turned out to be a very interesting exercise for them.
Excellent examples, Josh. Excellent.
So unfortunately during the pandemic, we are not able to do these really in-person sessions. So what we have done instead was a virtual student exchange program, where we engaged 2 international students who were still in Hong Kong at that time, and then we have a live program to talk about works of art, and then we were live streaming it for other would-be exchange students, because during that year, students from Latin America and from Europe, they couldn't come to Hong Kong, but then they had this interest to learn more about Hong Kong. So we had this program. So there were over 20 students from all over the world that were part of this program, and then it was a very interactive session. I think it has to do with this topic. What we were looking at was actually a stele with a eulogy of a deceased person who died, at age 21. And so we were talking about this issue of life and death, and this biography about the deceased. What are some of the conventional languages or vocabularies that were used to describe somebody's lives? So we were talking about all sorts of things, and it turned out to be a very interesting session. And then in the end, it was recommended for the Times Higher Education Award. And so it turned out to be a very exciting opportunity for us. But then, of course, I mean, for the senior administrators, it really got to their attention when we were able to raise significant sums of money. So we were very lucky a few years ago, back in 2019, to get a major support from a very important local foundation, the Lourenco Foundation, for 100 million Hong Kong dollars. That was about 13 million US dollars, to as the seed fund for the construction of a new wing. And then last year, when we celebrated our golden anniversary, we secured another major gift and pledge from the Lee family, whom I've mentioned from the very beginning of my talk. They pledged $50 million for our 50th anniversary. And so with these 2 major gifts, the university was able to get a matching grant from the government for an additional $50 million of Hong Kong dollars. So together with it, we had a budget of $200 million, which is roughly 25 million US dollars to build this new wing, which is this building, which is the museum pavilion that you see on the lower right. We hope to have it open by the end of next year. So here this is just to give you, a sense of our physicality, where the museum was built in 1971 with two phases of expansion, and then continue with the new building next year. And the really nice thing about this new building is that it will be on University Avenue. So that means in the future, when our visitors come, through private cars, then they can get off the car and then go straight into the museum, instead of having to go through the main quads and areas. So we have to put it in context, because the idea is not simply to just build a new wing. We want to convince our community and our university that this museum actually serves a greater purpose for the university and for Hong Kong. And so earlier this year, actually it was late last year, the chief executive of Hong Kong, she was giving the policy address, and then she was really having this strong emphasis on the development of the cultural industries. And she said that the cultural industries in Hong Kong have been given a boost of confidence by the 14th five-year plan for its clear support towards Hong Kong developing into an East meets West center for international cultural exchange. So what that means is that there is this general tendency for China and for Hong Kong to develop the cultural industries. And so what we are doing on campus would align with this major development of the cultural industries in Hong Kong and mainland China in general. And here, what you see on my slide, three major museums. From the upper right is the Hong Kong Museum of Art that had undergone major renovation about 5 years ago, and then the establishment of a contemporary museum of visual culture called M+, that opened last fall, and then to be open in 2 weeks' time is the Hong Kong Palace Museum on the lower right. So these are larger image that you see on the left is the image of our new wing. And then in the meantime, we have also developed a new strategic plan for the next couple of years, and we want it to be really impact driven. So we want to focus on professional impact. We want to multiply our local and national and global partnerships, and we want to train and retain our talents. We want to make sure that the things that we do have community impact. And in order to achieve that, we want to advance our school programs, and we want to participate in more fairs to raise our profiles and to raise awareness in the community. And we also want to engage the creative industries, especially I'm thinking about to develop a new line of our museum souvenirs. And we also want to have on-campus impact, such as to optimize our museum facility. And here, what I mean by optimizing our museum facility is really to highlight the fact that part of our museum spaces are actually in need of renovations. So I just want to make it out there in our strategic plan. And then we want to facilitate on-campus transit, because the Chinese University of Hong Kong is actually a pretty large campus, and we are on a Hill campus. So we want to, at some point in the future, we want to have a shuttle service that would allow our staff member and our students to be able to come to the museum more conveniently from other parts of campus. And we also want to enhance our interactive engagements. And so on the digital side, we want to boost our digital presence. In the last 2 years, we have established a WeChat account to reach our audience in mainland China. And we want to initiate partnerships with our computer science and engineering department. This is to do more on arts and technology. But on the other hand, not everything about art and technology needs to be highbrow. So we also want to explore open source tools that we could take advantage of without having to pay a high price. And then we also want to emphasize inter-university impact. We want to strengthen the East and West ties, and we want to become a model for new museums, and also to present Chinese art objectively and intellectually. So I think these are some of the things that would resonate with other faculty members and our senior administrators. And because of all these developments, the university decided to upgrade the museum administratively last year. And it did take a full year to go through this whole exercise, because for the past 50 years, we have been a research unit under a research institute. But now, of course, research is still at the core of what we do. But I think the university has recognized the fact that our research output has a far greater impact than simply publishing catalogs and books and journals. So and in a sense, the museum aligns with the university's strategic development on education, student experience, research and innovation, global engagement, talent retention, alumni engagement, institutional advancement, and social responsibility. So these are the kind of key items that are pretty much on top of the university's strategic plannings, agendas. And in a sense, we fit the bill in all these areas. So now they think that it would benefit the university to actually upgrade the museum. So we are now under the supervision of the provost, and this has been a very helpful exercise for us, because now it would allow us to see to have a better idea of what the senior management would expect of our museum, and to have the provost as our supervisor is also very helpful, because he has played a more active role in looking at our mission and vision. And here we have revised our mission statement and also our vision statement. And I thought this would be interesting for me to share with you all the original mission statement, which is quite a mouthful. I have to admit.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's a very long statement. So it took us several months, with the provost and several vice chancellors to really, look at the, key concepts that we wanted to explore in our mission statement and also our vision statement. And then in the exercise, I have also, conveyed to the provost that there are certain key terms that I would really like to keep in the mission statement. So let me just read it out, because I think it's good.
Yes,
the Art Museum of CUHK advances object-based scholarship to illuminate the development of Chinese civilization for a global audience. Through its collections, exhibitions, publications, outreach, and educational programs, the museum aims to enrich the cultural experiences of the community and help realize the goals of the university.
That's very important. Yeah.
So for this mission statement, I have emphasized the idea of object-based scholarship. And I have also emphasized the need for building our collections, and the need for exhibitions, the need for publications, the need for outreach and educational programs. So these are the key terms that I make sure to, these are the key concepts from the original mission statement: collecting, preserving, researching, exhibition. I want to make sure that these concepts would remain in our updated statement. And then in our vision statement.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
just to say that what I find very, very important for the university, for the global university museum community, is that the last part, and help realize the goals of the university. We often do not feel that we contribute as a tool for the university to reach out to society, to the international sphere, and so on. And I think that by materializing, putting it into words, it helps us very much. It's not yet frequent. You don't see that in mission statements of university museums, although sometimes they do it, but they don't put it there. And I think it's super, super important for, this two-world we live between two worlds, right? The world of museums and the world of the university, and we are part of the university, and a very important part of the university. We can reach more people than any university department, and that's something that you are stressing, and I wanted here to, to also to underline, because it's not always clear. It's not always clearly put as you did. So congratulations, this is really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. And our vision statement is a leading university museum that inspires wonder, promotes understanding, engages the community, and connects with the world. So with the provost support, we were able to secure additional funds from the university to renovate some of the older parts of the museum. And this image, the floor plan in the middle of the slide, shows you the former office areas of the museum, and now we want to repurpose it into an educational space. And one argument that I made was to say that all major universities would have a separate space for having object-based learning. So you don't just get the students in the gallery, because of course having a gallery tour it's one thing, but for students to have more in-depth sessions on objects, you really need to have a separate space.
That's right.
And we do need a larger space for that. So I was just using examples from other leading universities and to demonstrate the fact that all these universities would have a separate space for it. And so and that's how we do it. And then of course some other universities would always think, some other university members would think, well the university is really investing a lot of money into the museum. So to put things in context, in the exercise of when we were going through the upgrade, I tried to benchmark our museum with other university museum. The purpose of this slide is to show that actually the museum is not giving us that much money. So 23 million Hong Kong dollars is really roughly less than 3 million US dollars. And so this is just to give people a sense of.
But it's also larger museums, right? These are all larger museums. I mean, the Penn Museums is a huge.
Right, of course. So yeah. So we don't expect to get funding like Yale or
the Penn, right?
But this is just to give it a little bit of context. But I think
the Ashmolean, which is huge. It's a huge museum. It's really. It has everything. It has art, archaeology, so it's much larger than. These are the largest art museums art university museums in the world. Yeah.
That's right. So another recent exercise that we have done. Oh, by the way, I want to repeat the fact that these dollar amounts are in Hong Kong dollars. So if you divide them by 8, then you get roughly the equivalent of US dollars. So for some other people who think that the university is giving us a lot of support, I will remind them that for this investment that the university has given the museum, what we are giving back to the university community is a lot more. And recently, we have engaged an agency that would give us the AVE, the advertising value
equivalency,
which is the dollar value for media coverage. And what we have found was that for this past year, our AVE was equivalent to 182 million Hong Kong dollars, which is 10 times more than our annual allocation. So I think this would allow the university administrators to understand the impact that the museum has on the university. So we are trying to get free promotions from TV channels and newspapers, and because we don't have the marketing dollar to put up ads. So this is the short presentation that I prepared for you, and I hope that at some point I will be able to welcome you to our museum, and the new wing will open late next year in December.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to go there. And I think, as in our exchanges, you have mentioned the possibility of UMAC meeting in your museum. And I think it's going to be a great idea. You must make the proposal in one of our annual general meetings There was the COVID, and so we didn't have the annual meetings where we wanted to go. So there's kind of a delay. So
Right.
we were going in 2020 to Australia. Only next year we're going to Australia. So there's kind of a delay. But you should make your proposition as soon as possible, because not only the new museum, but your experience and the experience of your staff and the engagement with the community and everything that you presented here is going to be a wonderful experience to share with our colleagues, because there's many new projects of university museums in Europe, South America, North America, Asia, of course. China, I mean, is the top. The money invested in university museums by China, I'm sure, I don't have the data, but I'm sure surpasses every other country. But sometimes new museums, although we've been complaining, for decades, we want new, facilities and so on, but sometimes it creates new challenges for us, and we have to rethink the way what we are for the university, for the general public, and so on. And I think you've done a magnificent reflection internally, and you have advocated for the museum and its role in the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So it's really, I will not be chair, as you know, so I will not decide. But next year with the new chair, I think you should absolutely make that proposal to the annual general meeting too, so that we can go there.
Well, chair or not, we would love to have you, Marta, to come to Hong Kong. And in fact, I think I would love to take this opportunity to, express our interest in hosting UMAC at some point in the future, because it would be important to me and to my colleagues on campus that we welcome other, the museum community, especially university museum community, because it is only through your presence here in Hong Kong that other colleagues on campus would understand that, wow, there is because I think maybe to the average Hong Kong person, they are not aware that this community for universities, museums actually exists. I mean, they can probably understand that there are museums here and there, but they don't understand that we are actually a very tight community.
Exactly.
So it will be incredible.
But that happens everywhere. Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm chair of UMAC. I've been asked about university museums for decades. I did my PhD in university museums, I don't know, not so many years ago. But at my university, I don't count. My opinion doesn't count. It has to be somebody coming from the outside, in order to, so it's the same. We have to go there, and being there, the international community of university museums from the outside, supporting you and, consolidating the path that you are already taking, but you are on a very good path already. So it's not like you need a lot of help. You just need a little bit of boost and recognition. And I think we will gain more from you than you will gain from us being there. But
no, I don't know about that. No.
Anyway, okay. Can I ask you a few questions that your presentation raised, because I'm curious. Well, I see. So, looking at the global picture from 1971, what we see is a small teaching museum modeled as an American art museum inside the university to support teaching, very connected with the Institute of Chinese Studies. And then you gradually see, more recently in the last, I don't know, 10 years maybe, it emerging, becoming, continuing to be that, even because it's a location inside the institute, so it makes it difficult to become more autonomous, but at the same time, acquiring new audiences, reaching out, doing, becoming more than the university in terms of relationship with the society. And at this point, you are in that wonderful position that many of us envy, of being really a window between the contributing to the university for teaching, research, and all the metrics that universities like, internationalization, but at the same time, a museum in the normal sense of the word, and a big museum, a reference for Hong Kong and possibly mainland China too. So how do you look at this progression, this evolution? What was the most difficult thing? Of course, you were not there the whole time, but you had to reflect about this. What is your view? Was it more difficult to go outside the university, or to convince the university of the recognition? I mean, was it more difficult the external way or the internal challenges?
I think, thank you for this question. I think I'm the fifth director of the museum. And I think I can speak for my predecessors as well. I think all along we have first and foremost consider ourselves museum professionals. Even though two of my predecessors also served as full-time professors at the Fine Arts Department. And in fact, the second director of the University Museum was also the chair professor of the Fine Arts Department at that time. So when we see ourselves as museum professionals, first of all, we make contacts with our museum colleagues locally and nationally, and with other other museums. And so we bring in our friends and colleagues from different parts of the world to work with us on projects. And so in a sense, I wouldn't necessarily say that we have we are more externally minded now than before. I would say that it has always been part of our DNA. And that we've always worked very closely together with other institutions. And in fact, we were the first museum in Hong Kong to work with the Palace Museum in Beijing.
Exactly. That's fantastic. Okay. And this fundraising that you mentioned, I think that's one of the greatest challenges, because when we in a university museum fight a lot, to convince these or the private sector or foundations or whatever to give us money, and then sometimes the money goes to a big bag in the university and doesn't come to us, so we feel frustrated and so on. So fundraising doesn't work that well in terms of us. So your experience is really fantastic. You mentioned the Lee family and the Lee Foundation, I think. What else? What other channels have you been having of fundraising outside the university, and what have been the most difficult things that you can share with us?
Yeah, actually, we don't really consider ourselves fundraisers. We don't. We at least not during my time that we ever organize any fundraising galas, that kind of thing. But what we have done is that we have envisioned a lot of projects that I think resonate with other people. And so when we get support for that project, that would also cover part of our operation cost. So for instance, we have worked with this major company. I think it's probably the largest manufacturer of gold ornaments and Chow Tai Fook in China. And we work on a multi-year project together on the exploration of the developments of gold artifacts in Chinese history. And then they support us, a multi-million-dollar grant that also supported, some of our staff members. So earlier when I said that, we have, the university support, 21 to 22 headcounts on site, but the reason that we're able to have, about close to 40 staff is because a lot of our colleagues at the museum are actually funded by other programs that have very specific deliverables for a project. So
I understand. I understand. That's a wonderful opportunity, of course. But at the same time, it creates the challenge of you're never really sustainable in terms of staff. You have to constantly be searching for programs. But hey, that's our life in a university. I mean, other colleagues of us from research and so on, they have all the time to be, that's how a university functions. So everyone is used to that. In fact, maybe more than other museums outside the university to look for money for programs, of course. Are there any other museums at CUHK?
Well, there is a Museum of Climate Change that was established. Established about 10 years ago, funded by the Jockey Club. The Jockey Club is one of the largest. It's one of the largest charities in the world. Definitely,
I heard about them.
Top 10 charities in the world. And so I think the idea is to raise awareness about climate change. But I think it's interesting because in a sense, the Museum of Climate Change does not fit the conventional definition of a museum.
Of a university museum.
Right. And so it's an interesting program.
Right.
But but we are other than that, we are the museum. Yeah.
The main museum. And do you have relations with other art university museums, whether in Hong Kong or in mainland China? Have you established?
Oh yes, absolutely. We work very closely with other universities, museum, and also local museums. Right. So earlier I mentioned that the Hong Kong Palace Museum will open in about 10 days on July 2nd. In fact, I attended the opening yesterday. We lent them about 68 objects. So we work with museums not just in Hong Kong but also in mainland China. And in fact, earlier we trying to curate exhibitions from our collections and then put them in other cities on mainland China. And then when that exhibition gained traction, had a large audience, then we go back to our donors and to our university administrators and tell them that, look, this exhibition generated, it's a modest loan fee we get from the other place, but it does, it's like a great promotion of the university. So they are happy about that.
Yes. And in fact, we have a long, since 2017, I think, this training program with Shanghai Jiao Tong University. And that's where I met someone. What's her name? She lived. Prudence. Yes. Oh, she was lovely. Hi, Prudence, if you're seeing us. I mean, she was lovely. And she brought me a catalog and I could firsthand, experience the quality of the work you've been doing. And I remember that she attended actually more than 1 year of those university museum training weeks in Shanghai. And so it was amazing. And of course, the fact that China is investing a lot continues to investing in university museums, in the culture through the higher education, also, grants some long-term stability to these university museums. I think that's a very good thing, and it's from the perspective of promoting and recognizing university museums. Everyone has its eyes on China because of the commitment of the government and and the higher education to promoting the collections and the cultural heritage. So that's a very important thing for us. I think it's been great talking to you. I don't know, we're not live, so we don't have a chat box with the questions from the audience. But if at any point anyone who's listening to us, wherever it is in the world, first of all, my email is everywhere, my phone number, everything, so you can find it on UMAC website and you can direct me a question and I will forward to Josh. or you can just use the comments below the video and we will also answer. So it's been a pleasure, Josh, to be with you. And I wish you all the best, all the success for this continuation. And definitely, we want to be there and visit you and support you and your staff and, you know, your students and everyone that is connected to the museum. It's going to be great to be there. Maybe on our way to Australia, who knows? Because next year we're going to Australia. We still don't know the day. But no, not on the way. We really need to go there and stay with you. So that's better. And I hope to see you. I don't know if you're coming to Prague. This year's conference is going to be the big one with the ICOM, the 26th General Conference of ICOM.
Unfortunately, I cannot make it to Prague.
You cannot. Yeah. It's not the best conference for the university museum community to meet because it's always very busy and there's 3,000 museum professionals from all over the world. This year is going to be particularly exciting, but at the same time challenging because there's going to be the new museum definition, there's going to be a new code of ethics. So after all these years without meeting, you know, so it's going to be like that, but it's not the best indeed for university museums professionals to exchange. So Josh, really wonderful to be with you. Thank you on behalf of UMAC and UMAC members. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, everybody.